Welcome again, everyone, to another episode of the AUDL Take. We have another interview segment for you this episode, and this time it is with Indianapolis Alley Cat player Cameron Brock. We're going to be talking about the AUDL and how he's been playing since 2012. Notice his perspective on how the league has evolved over the years, as well as his team. We're also going to be talking about his stats, especially him being the all-time goal leader in the AUDL, and also talking about All-Star Weekend last year and kind of his views on what he felt about being a little excluded from that, as well as how the game itself went. That is part one of the interview in this AUDL episode. Welcome back, everyone. We are here with Cameron Brock, player for the Indianapolis Alley Cats. Thanks, Cam, for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So we're going to jump right into, you're one of the longest running players in the league. You've been playing since 2012 consistently, every year, and for the same team. So I kind of want to get your perspective on what it's like watching this league grow, and as well as watching your team with the Alley Cats grow as well.
Sure. I mean, it's really crazy where it's come since the first year, and not only from an on-the-field product. Obviously, the teams have gotten better. The caliber of players has gotten stronger as we've gone through from pretty much every year. It feels like caliber gets stronger and stronger and stronger across the league. But just a lot of the things that you wouldn't think about off the field, that things maybe that would be no-brainers that we weren't doing in the league, like games weren't all recorded, so you couldn't really get highlight videos from every game, or even just go back and watch film or anything. You kind of just had to hear about it on Twitter, and try to figure out like what happened based off of, tweets, or maybe somebody might do a write-up, but there was like no coverage for the league. It's pretty crazy to see where it's at now, where, we have a guy like Evan Lepler who does the Tuesday Toss, and we have guys like Adam Ruffner and Daniel Cohen who are writing these articles, and like Louis Satzman, and just all these people that have contributed. Just none of that was there. And It was really hard, even as somebody in the league, to know what was going on everywhere else. Whereas now it just feels so easy. Like every game's recorded, you can watch them all live. If you want to watch a highlight video to kind of see some of the cool stuff that happened, you can. There's all these write-ups. A lot of teams have their own writers too. So if you want to read from their perspective about what happened, you can. And back in 2012, it was like the wild, wild west, man. You just didn't know what was going to happen. Games got canceled. Teams dropped out of the league. Like we were supposed to play against Connecticut and host them, and then they were like the best team in the league maybe, and then they end up dropping out of the league, and we were supposed to go on a road trip to Rhode Island, but they had been in litigation with the league, so that game didn't happen. So we had 2 games canceled that season, and that's just like unheard of now. Like that just doesn't happen. So I don't know, it's crazy. And obviously like the team I play on now would kick the crap out of the team I played with in 2012. And we had Goose Helton, who obviously is an amazing player. We had Brody Smith, who has a lot of name recognition, but we would just destroy that team now. And like we would destroy every team in the league if we went back and played through that season now. But that's just kind of shows how much the league has grown, because right now we're definitely capable of beating, I think, any team in the league, but I definitely wouldn't feel comfortable saying we're going to go out and destroy a bunch of teams.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, would you say, too, a lot of the reasons why you would beat that team from 2012 is because you've gotten used to playing on the AUDL field as well?
I don't think so. I don't think it has as much to do with that as much as, like, when you really think about it, like, I was one of the better, I don't know if I want to say that. I was a person who contributed a lot. I'll put it that way. In that first year, and I am just leaps and bounds better. Travis Carpenter was a guy who played a lot of defense for us. Travis is an unrecognizable player from 2012 and now. He's a complete all-around player now. Back then, he was very much kind of like this energetic, like athletic kid who could maybe make a play here and there, but he wasn't somebody you were going to rely on to like really carry your line, or wasn't a person you were going into where the other team was like game planning for him by any means. And like Keenan, same way. Keenan has developed into a much different player it's just we've just all gotten so much better. We were really young that first year, and a lot of guys that didn't have a lot of high level experience, including myself, and we've developed over the years. And now it's like that young talent we're bringing in now has been playing since they were like 12, so they've already got years of experience. Where I mean, I had only been playing for like 3 years when I started playing in the AUDL, because I didn't start playing until I was like 20 or 21. So it's like yeah.
I've, like I say, with Carpenter, I remember it was like 15, 16. I just started to see, I already knew a lot about him, but you just saw him. It was like in 1 year, he completely transformed into this, like, I mean, I know it took years to get to that, but yeah, all of a sudden, Keegan North, like these names started to pop up a lot more often and by week to week. And that also goes into what you're talking about. We started having more and more media to kind of promote that. So I think too, that also makes players even want to play harder. They want to get on those highlight reels as well.
Oh yeah, it's always cool when you go back and watch a highlight reel and a play of yours is in there, and you just hope that you don't end up in the bad end of the highlight reel where someone's making a play on you. But here's the thing: if you're going to be willing to try to make plays, you have to be willing to have plays made against you too, because that's just how it's going to go.
Sports. So jumping into like you personally, your stats as well, and I know you're probably used to hearing this all the time, but you are the all-time goal leader right now in the league by a lot. Definitely helps when you've been playing consistently every year and being in the league since the beginning. And this past year, you hit 500 goals. What's that been like to be the leader, and kind of talk about what it felt like to get that 500 goal limit, and where you see yourself going as far as goals and other stats in the future?
Sure. So when I first joined the team, I heard I was going to be playing O-line, and that was really exciting for me. I had been a pretty consistent goal scorer for my college team at Ball State, and I figured that's probably what they wanted me to do for Alley Cats as well. I will say there was a little bit of, the thing is, I'll put it this way: the worse your team is, the more one person can kind of dominate that stat line, I think. So if you don't have a complete team around you, which I think the Alley Cats, it took a while to get like a real complete team. It allows people who are really good in one area, you kind of have to focus on that. So like I scored a ton of goals early on. We didn't really have a lot of goal scoring threats. I was our fastest player, I'd be like our fastest player, our most athletic player. We didn't have the ability to like consistently like possess the disc, so we took a lot of deep shots. We took a lot riskier throws because of that. So I was able to benefit from that from a statistical standpoint. Now I think like last year was probably my best season ever, and it was like my lowest goal scoring total ever. But I'm so much more involved in the offense now, and there are a lot of things that I do now that are really beneficial for the team, but they don't necessarily benefit me from a statistical standpoint, which is totally fine. My favorite thing to do right now that like people probably don't notice, which is totally fine, but I know my teammates notice and they appreciate it, is a lot of times when I make a really good cut, I take 2 defenders with me and it leaves somebody else wide open. And it seems like it's usually for Rick Gross. Like it seems like I'll cut right before him. I'll get his defender out of the way because I'll juke my defender, and then his defender has to help, and then Rick gets like a free under. Or I do that and go under and Rick gets a free deep. Like it's happened that way a lot of times. And like those are things that don't show up in the stat sheet, but they're helping our offense. And we're just so much more balanced now. When you have a guy like Rick Gross, when you have guys like Keegan North and Travis Carpenter, like I don't need to dominate the stat line. And honestly, like those guys are better players than I am. So like they're probably going to dominate the stat lines more than I am. And that's totally fine with me because it's helping us be a better offense. And that's really what it's all about.
Well, yeah, like you said, that kind of stuff where you're pulling the defender, that's not showing up on the stat line. But when they're looking at film, that team's looking at film, they're like, hey, we've been noticing he's doing this to us. Like people are noticing it. Maybe you don't want them to notice that of the other team, but that kind of stuff, there's so much in Ultimate 2 that stats just can't really deliver because of the way the offense has to move and how you're pulling defenders and freeing up offense down the field. Would you say too, and I guess you kind of already answered this, but when you're going out there, I don't think you're thinking about, oh, what kind of stats am I going to get today? Do I need to get this goal? You're kind of, I'm going to play my game and see where the stats, where they fall.
Sure. Yeah. I think especially now, I feel that way. I think early on in my Ultimate career in the AUDL, like my first probably like 3 or 4 years, probably 3 years, I did feel a lot of pressure to score a lot of goals because that's what people just told me I was good at, and that's people have said like that's all you do, you just score goals. So I actually felt bad if I didn't score like enough goals in a game, not because I wanted the attention, but I just felt like
that was
from what people were telling me, it's just like you aren't useful if you're not scoring goals. Like, so I remember that second year when I set what was the AUDL record for goals, I missed a game because I had a stroke. And when I came back, my first game back, I hadn't run in 2 weeks. I wasn't allowed to. I was only allowed to walk. So I was not in shape. My legs weren't used to me moving that way anymore. We played against Cincinnati. It was a home game. We beat them pretty easily, but I scored 3 goals, which that season, I think that was the only game I scored less than, I think, 5 the whole season. Yeah. And I felt actually like I let the team down, even though we'd won the game. Like, from a team perspective, we were successful, but because I had all this pressure on me from people in the ultimate community here in Indianapolis, just telling me like, oh, all you can do is score goals. That's all you're good for. If I wasn't doing that at a high level, I felt like I wasn't doing my job. And it took until probably like the 3rd or 4th year for me to realize that I can do more than that. I can contribute in a lot of ways other than just scoring goals. And that doesn't define how successful of a game I had or how successful I am as an ultimate player. I just had to kind of shut those voices out and say, you know what, I'm going to go work on things to be a more complete player, to be able to be more than just a goal scorer. And I'm going to start to celebrate personally those things I'm doing in a game where I'm not scoring goals, but I am doing things that are helping the team. And that really just helped me become just a better team player and have a better mental game when it came to playing ultimate. So I was thankful I was able to get out of that. And I don't think anyone was trying to make me feel that way, but that was the pressure that I felt from the comments I was getting from people.
Well, and I mean, that's what was driving you, I'm sure, in the beginning. But yeah, as you become better and you start to notice the players around you becoming better, you are able to lift some of that off. That's like a team thing as well. Mm-hmm. But going in, kind of talking about stats, we're kind of moving into last year. We saw the first ever All-Star game from the AUDL. And I think from their perspective, they love championship weekend so much. It's such a big drive for, money and marketing. And I think the All-Star game is kind of an extra addition to that each year. What did you think of last year's All-Star game?
Game was awesome. I was actually helping out the league doing some stuff for High Five, me and Exton, one of the owners up in Seattle, and Mike Arcata from Philadelphia. We were doing this High Five video thing with people who were at the game. So the first half, I didn't really watch. I was kind of watching while I was doing that. But then, I mean, the game was just incredible. Really wish I could have been there, not only to play, but even just there in person to watch.
Sure.
I think it's just such a cool opportunity when you get all those players from all the different parts of the country and you get to kind of mix up and be on the same team or play against some of those players. I think that's just such a cool opportunity. I was really excited for Rick, who represented us, to be able to go and do that. And I know that he said it was fun and it was a good experience. And it was well deserved for him. I mean, he's been killing it for us, and he's been a great teammate. And I've seen him develop from a kid who was kind of like Travis. He came in, he was athletic and he was young and he didn't have a ton of experience. And then he's just developed into this crazy great player, and a guy I'm really happy to call my teammate and excited to be able to go out there with. I mean, he makes my job easier, because it used to be I got the best defender all the time for every team we played, and now it's like, do they put their best defender on Rick? Do they put him on me? Do they put him on Travis, Keegan? Like, who are you gonna put it on? Like, and he's so good, it doesn't really matter who you put on him. But like, watching that All-Star game was just so cool, and it was just really exciting every time I got to see Rick step on the field and get to watch him play, because normally I'm watching from the sidelines or I'm on the field with him. It was kind of cool to be able to listen to announcers say his name and watch that live. So that was really cool.
I mean, what was your reaction when you saw that you weren't on that list?
I mean, if you went by just what was going on last season, I didn't have like the numbers that that would pop out. And I had come off a couple of really good seasons too. I think like Rick and I finished like second and third in goals one year in the whole league. It might have been the year before when Sean McDougal was first, and like me and Rick were second. Like I had been top 5 in goals scored every year. And then last year I wasn't. Last year I took a step back in that, and Rick was an MVP candidate like 2 years in a row, especially the year before that, and he'd been having a great year. And Keegan and Travis had been having, like, honestly, I wouldn't have put myself in the top like probably 5 or 6 people just from our team to be able to go to the All-Star game. Like, so I didn't feel, I know a lot of people tried to make it like I was snubbed. Like Matt Smith gave me a little shout out during the draft and said something about me being on there, and Matt's great. And I love Matt. He's awesome. Yeah. And I know our media really tried to hype up that I should have been on there. And then I was in the final vote, and they were really trying to hype that up to get me in. But honestly, like being in the final vote and just being considered to be in it was a big honor for me. I would have loved to have been there and been able to participate, but like I didn't feel like I was snubbed. I didn't feel like I deserved to be there. And I would love the opportunity to be there, but I was just really happy for everyone else that got to go, and it looked like everyone had a great time and really enjoyed the experience. So I'm glad that everyone had fun and it was a good game, and that there was a lot of positive feedback from fans too. So,
well, I like how you kind of said, if you look at it just last year, maybe you didn't have what it took to get there compared to, but I think a lot of people just look at you historically of what you've done for the league and your goal scores for the first All-Star game. It just would have been nice to see you there. And I think it's cool to see how many people reacted in your favor, just kind of to see it. Wow, there's so many people out there who really just thought I deserved to be there. That must have felt pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the support was awesome. A lot of people here in the community locally have been super supportive of me, and big proponents of me and as a player. And that's really humbling and just really cool that people think that highly of me as a player and even as a person. Like to get that feedback is just, I don't know. I don't even know how to put it into words, but even people like around the United States that have been watching for a while or have been supportive, it's really cool to get that support. And depending on who you ask, I'm either a really good or really terrible Ultimate player. I get people telling me like, oh, I saw this comment on Reddit that someone was bashing you, or like some people still think I'm just like this really terrible Ultimate player who happened to score a lot of goals, and that's fine. Like I don't think I'm some like world beater. I'm not like a world's all-star or anything like that. But I also don't think I'm the worst player in the world. I think I'm probably somewhere in the middle, but I just happen to catch the disc in the end zone a lot. And that's a stat that people, it's like the points scored in the NBA or the home runs or whatever. That's kind of the stat that people focus on a lot, is the scores. So I get that. But I just go out there and try to do the best that I can, and try to improve in areas where I can improve in, and now at my age, being an older guy in the team, being a guy with a lot of experience, just trying to pass some of that knowledge and information on to some of the younger guys. Or like this year specifically, I was really gonna try to like kind of be more of a mentor to a lot of the younger guys. We have a ton of young kids that are on the team, and I think I've done a little bits and pieces of that. Like if people asked me, I would always, be like, hey, yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that. But I didn't always like think about in the moment, like how can I actively go search for those players on the team who need help, who I can see need some guidance. And that's kind of like a focus for me this year, is like I really want to focus on some of those younger kids and watching them in practice. I'm always so focused on what we're doing as an O-line and, trying to improve that sometimes I lose focus on the fact that I can be having an impact on the younger guys just by being in their ear a little bit and kind of talking to them about things I notice they're doing well or things that they can improve on. So yeah.
That's going to wrap up part 1 of our interview. Make sure you look into the next episode for part 2. It was a nice long interview, so I wanted to kind of break it up for you. But yeah, hop right into the next section.